All right, welcome back. So we have our profile loading from our table successfully. It's loading into layout, which is good because it's pulling it from the server, which means our profile will be available before we actually load into our page. But what do we do with that profile? Like, how do we do something with that profile? Well, what I need to do is share that profile with any page, any endpoint that needs it. And the way I'm going to do that is by creating a context. But before I can create a context, I need to create a type. So what we're going to do is create a new folder in our source called types. We've done typing before. And then inside of types, we're going to create a new file called profile.ts, and then export type profile equals this, and we're just going to align it with the properties that we need from this. So we're going to say ID, which is going to be a string. We'll say we don't need updated at username string full underscore name. Let me expand this a little bit because I'm kind of full underscore name. Did I miss anything? Okay, full underscore name string avatar URL string and website string. Although I believe these can be null. You see a lot of these are null, so let's null safe the ones that need to be null. Okay, so these can be null, full name can be null. Actually, all of them can be null, aside from the ID. So we'll make all of these nullable as well. So we have a type. Now we're going to create a context. And contexts are pretty cool because they allow us to share data with the entirety of our application. Any page, any endpoint, anything that that layout.tsx works with. So create a new folder, contexts, and then we're going to create a file in here called profile context.tsx. Now, contexts are not very intuitive for how they're built. I don't really have it memorized all that well, but let's just go with it and try to figure it out. I know we need our hooks. The two hooks that we need are create context and use context. And then from React, there we go. So we got our hooks imported. We're going to import our profile type as well. And then what we need to do is create a something that represents the properties of this. And it's actually a new type as well. So it's going to be a type called maybe profile props or something like that. I can't remember the exact way to put this. And this is just going to define anything that we need our pages to have access to. And for now, it's just going to be the profile. The type is going to be profile, but it's possible they're not logged in. So it could be undefined. So we're going to have it as profile or undefined. So this is the data structure, essentially. The next thing we're going to do is create a context. It's going to be called profile context, create context. And then there's a typing that goes in here. And the typing is always whatever this is and undefined. So it's going to be profile props and then undefined. So this could be undefined, but this could also be undefined. And I don't know why it's blue there. There we go. Okay, it went to green. All right, profile context. Good. Now we need to create a function that's going to return our context provider. So it's going to be called export function profile provider. It's a component, so it's capitalized. And then inside of here, we want to return profile context.provider. And then inside of here, it's the children element. So basically anything inside of here will have access to the provider, whatever the provider returns. Now, here I have to return a value and the value has to align with this. So it's going to be profile, and then for now we're going to leave it undefined, which is allowed because this type is undefined here. Children, we don't have the children imported as a prop, so we'll put props and then children. Children is kind of a built-in term. It's a react.react node. There we go. And then we'll change this to props.children. Okay. So this is the basic structure that we need for this. However, we also need a way to use the context. So down here, we're going to export a function called useProfile. And it's going to be like this. Context equals useContext. So that's that other hook. And then we put our context inside of here, profile context. So you see the profile context is used here with .provider as a component, and it's also used here to get the context. Then we're going to check if there is no context. We have to null or undefined check this. And if there is no context, we're going to throw an error. Throw new error. And it's going to say like use profile must be used within profile provider. This should never hit. This should never occur. This will only occur if for some reason we have an endpoint that is not routed through layout.tsx, which I don't know how that could happen. And then we return context. We have to have this because otherwise we're going to get an error here. Well, when we try to use it, it's going to say undefined. Sorry, it's not an error here, but later when we try to use it, it's going to annoy us and say this could possibly be undefined. But by checking here, that allows us to use this without worrying about undefined. You can see now it just says profile props, context profile props. It doesn't say possibly undefined because we checked it there and we're throwing an error. Okay. So I don't want to return profile undefined here. I want to return an actual profile. The way I'm going to do that is we are going to pass in a profile as a property. So right here next to children, we're going to pass in a profile, but it could also be undefined. So it's going to be another property, profile or undefined, and then we're going to pass that through here. So it's going to be props.profile. That's a lot of stuff to absorb. You're going to have to reread this many, many times. But the way I like to think about it, you have your data structure here. You have your create context here. You have your provider. And then you have your use. So this is how I sort of mentally divide it to try to remember it. I know that because of TypeScript, I have to type. I have to have a data structure. I know I have to create the context. I know that I have to export a provider, and I know I have to export a use function. But anyway, that's all there is to this. Now when we go back to layout, we can import that provider, import profile provider. And we're going to wrap profile provider. We're going to wrap the body of our HTML with that. I've seen both the body on the outside and the body on the inside. I think I like body on the outside here, or body on the inside of the provider here. Okay, so I have my profile data. If we look at what's actually being logged, it's an array. And then inside of the array is an object. And if we look at the type of this, it says any or null. So we're going to null check this, any as an array and null. We're going to do two things. So first we're going to say let profile, actually let's change this from profile to maybe data. And then it's going to say data.data instead, and that's fine. Okay. So we're going to say let profile equal undefined. And then we're going to, actually, let's put this above. It doesn't matter. We'll keep, that's fine. We'll keep it here. If data dot data and data dot data dot length is greater than 0, then what we'll do is we will say profile equals data dot data 0. And let's type this as profile or undefined. And we have to import that type. And since this is any, I believe it can be cast to that. And then we will simply say profile equals profile. I think this will work. How do we test if this works? Well, now that we have our provider, inside of any page, including our base page.tsx, we can import that function. Import use profile, and then we'll say const profile equals use profile, just like that, I believe. So this will give us our profile. And now let's try this. Now we know profile is going to be of the type profile or undefined. So what we'll say is, let's use some ternary logic here. And we're going to say profile. If it isn't undefined, we'll say hello. Full name, profile.full name. If it is undefined, we'll say hello world. Now, I shouldn't actually hit this. Should be a colon. Now let's go to our home page and see what we got. Then, okay, so we're saying you're importing a component that needs create context. This only works in client. So I need to go back to my profile context and I need to add use client. And then I think I also need to add use client here. In order to use the profile, we have to use client. So these have to be client side rendered here. And look at that. Hello, Dan White. So there's a lot going on. I think this is one of the most important concepts. This is a video that's definitely worth revisiting. Do your own research on context as well. But essentially, we created a context. The context provides the profile to any page that needs the profile. The layout actually gets the profile. And actually, you know what I want to do? I want to pull this out into a function here. We're going to say function get profile, and the return type is going to be profile or undefined. And then we need to return that. So I'm going to take all of this logic out of here. Literally everything out of here. And put it into here. We're going to make this an async function. And we're going to return profile at the end. Did I not do this right? Oh, it's got to be a promise of a profile because it's async. There we go. And then I believe we can do this. Await get profile. Just like that. And I'm actually going to do a little right click format document. There we go. Nice and squeaky clean. Same thing happens here now. Take that out. So we got our awesome profile pulling in. We got a nice helper function to accomplish that. I could pull this out into actions. I might do that later when I clean things up. But for now, I think it's okay where it is. connects to Supabase, gets the user, then tries to find a profile associated with the user. Take that console log out as well. Returns undefined if there is no user, and returns the profile otherwise. All right, so I think we're ready to move on, and I think in the next one we will actually be adding data to the table. Or, sorry, updating the profile.